Hello and welcome everybody to the iTricks interview. I am Justin Robert Young, editor of iTricks.com, and joining us now is, well, he was the winner. I mean, there's really no other way to say it, of our 2008 iTricks Trick of the Year Tournament of Champions. He's a prolific creator with an incredibly interesting backstory. His name is Rich Ferguson. How you doing, Rich?
Hey, Justin. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Doing really well.
Now, where are you joining us from?
I'm in San Luis Obispo, California, right on the Central Coast.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. All
And the
right, well,
weather's perfect.
yes. Well, that's what we
Yeah.
like to do. You know, people in California and Florida like to call each other and just high five. For
Exactly.
everybody
Yeah.
else in the middle. All right,
hmm
especially during the winter months. Let's get right into the questions. This is one of our favorite questions that we ask every single one of our guests here in the iTricks interview. If, let's say, time travel is a reality and you have a chance to go back at any point in your life to give yourself advice, either as a career professional or as a magician, where would you go back to, and what would you tell yourself? And I guess this will be our segue into you giving us a little backstory, everybody watching, about your story growing up.
Yeah. God, that's a good one. So many different places for so many different reasons. But if I had to pick
Well,
one,
go
when
go
you
through a
first,
bunch. Go through a bunch. We can do a
yeah,
top three.
when you first were asking that question, my mind immediately went back to like the 1800s because I'm kind of a man of all trades and crafts, and I thought, my efforts could get me far, my talents could get me far back there, because yeah, I'd be one of those craftsmen or something. But then you
Yeah.
said during
Well,
your life, I was like, ooh,
yeah.
that's kind of limited. uh, I would say probably junior high, definitely junior high age.
Okay, junior high age, and what would you tell yourself?
I would say that I would oh man, it's a pretty multi-layered question, really. I would say that I tell myself that everything's going to be okay, and that things around me are 100% flexible, and that I was accurate when I had an assessment at that age of what was going on around me. Because I
Now,
think I questioned myself way too much by the pressure of things around me.
now, just so everybody's on the same page watching, what were some of the things that you were going through during that age?
I was just very socially handicapped. We'll get into that. It sounds like you're going to ask a question about that, alluding to it here, that you
Well,
were
no,
going to
yeah,
ask
we can
about.
actually just get into it now, because I know that you had a very difficult childhood. You went through a lot of you had to overcome a lot of hurdles that obviously aren't, I would say they happen more than we think, but they certainly are not. They're unique to your situation. But a lot of people can relate to hardships that are outside of their control, really affecting their life, especially at a young age. So we can go into it right now. What were some of those challenges for you?
I think to answer both those at the same time, I picked junior high because the fact is I was adopted in junior high, and I didn't learn to read till I was about 12 years old. So my childhood was just very bizarre. And so then by the time I hit junior high, I was going through a ton of changes, physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. And I was a pretty freakishly observant kid. And so I looked at the world around me, and I had a certain kind of assessment on it, but then you're being told as a young kid that you're wrong and that you're not smart and all this stuff. So you get in your own head and kind of believe the stuff around you. When in fact, you look back on it as a 38, 39, 40-year old and you think, wow, you know what? I really had my stuff together. It was the people around me who were scared of their surroundings that put the kind of pressures on younger kids and things like that. So I don't know. It's gone full circle. I look back at that and I kind of smile and think, wow, I had a pretty good head on my shoulders for a kid who went through what he did and didn't really know how to read. So to
So
answer the first question, I would go back to junior high and say, you know what, kid, it's all going to be okay. Your assessment on the world is right, and your observations are correct, and just keep pushing forward and do the best you can. And that's kind of where I go with that. To answer your question about, I think more specifically the my upbringing,
yeah.
what exactly where you want to go on that? Because that's a book in itself right there, man.
It certainly is, and you've been incredibly forthcoming in the past about some of that story. But I'll tell you what, let's try as much as we can without doing the whole story any kind of injustice. Let's get the Reader's Digest version. The Rich Ferguson story in a nutshell.
The Rich Ferguson story. Oh boy, baby. Let me tell you. I will. start this off with saying that I never even spoke a word about this till I was probably about 35 years old, because I started getting really heavily involved with some nonprofit events pertaining to children and at-risk groups and things like that. And it just kind of, I exploded with this stuff, and I had no idea the impact it would make on these organizations and teenagers and things like that. So it's one of those really cool things. I've never was damaged by it. I didn't keep it a secret. My friends knew a little bit about it, but it wasn't anything I harped on. It was just something that happened, and I moved on. But I'd say a Reader Digest version, I mean, to not just blow by it all, but I'd say here's the top 5 things. Grew up in a crack house. My family were very well-known drug traffickers with police on the take. Extremely violent surroundings, lots of murders, rapes, shootings, very, very crazy. Um, Unhealthy, definitely. Never abused, just emotionally abused as far as just neglected, but never physically abused in any way, because if anyone ever touched me, I would have people that would, in my family that would take care of me. So I kind of lived in this false sense of security, and just, I don't know, I almost felt like I had superpowers. I went through my whole childhood up till 12 years old, bullets whizzing by me, things happening around me without any fear. And it was strange because you think I would be scared to death. But I knew I would be okay. And I just kind of observed the craziness around me and realized this is stupid. And I don't know where I ever got that from, because I had no good influence, that's for sure. But I just realized this is just dumb. And I think because I was so neglected, that I wasn't forced to do anything or follow in the footsteps of, my uncles and all the craziness around me. So I think in a way, being so neglected left me, to my own resources. So I became really observant and just kind of fended for myself, which probably was a blessing. But that I don't know. I didn't, like I said, I didn't learn to read till I was 12. I didn't really go to school till I was about 12 years old.
Yeah.
And then I got adopted. Luckily, really luckily, there was a family up here in this area who was looking for a kid who was a little bit older in the system. And I got put in the emergency foster care system and the protective services at 12. There was a lot of threats on our lives, and it was really crazy. So I got taken away. Schools, whatever system it was, finally, discovered me and realized that here's this kid who was just kind of being strung along. They took me away from the family, and which was another whole story. But the stuff that happened after I was taken away was just nuts. So it's a real good thing I was. But a family was looking for an older kid. They adopted me within months. It was a perfect fit. They had a ranch out here in the middle of nowhere, out in this neck of the woods. And so I moved down from Salinas to here, and the rest is history. There's a whole ton of other stories that wrap around it, but in a nutshell, I went from total insanity, fending for myself, doing for myself, not knowing how to really talk or read or do, had no social skills whatsoever, but was a very, very resourceful and bright kid, but just didn't know how to express myself. Then I got adopted, and even to this day, I was just part of a group called Linda Mood Bell, Dream for Kids, Big Brothers and Sisters, all these nonprofit events, and I got tested, and I was off the charts, highest I've ever tested when it came to observational skills. But still, it was probably about 35 when I was tested. I was at 3rd grade reading level, which is insane because I read quite well. I remember everything I see. So just based on the typical way people are tested, I didn't fit their mold. But at the same time, even though I was tested supposedly 3rd grade reading level as a 35-year-old, I was completely off the charts when it came to all their other parts of their tests.
Yeah.
So in my brain, it all balances out,
And let me just ask you this. Obviously, everybody takes their own path in life, and yours was, certainly off the beaten path. But, would you say that how you were raised, gave you a certain unique sense of, you mentioned perspective, of how, curious you were, that you kind of realized later that, okay, not everybody thinks like this. Was there ever that moment?
Yes, absolutely. And that exactly is why I kind of got into what I do, because I was in high school doing stuff to amuse myself, never as a magician. I didn't know what the word magic was until I was 20 something years old. I never had seen a magician, never saw a magic shop. I think the first magic shop I ever stepped foot into was in Santa Barbara, California, called World Magic or World's Greatest Magic or World of Magic, something like that. It's closed now, I think. And I think I was 25. I mean, I was never into magic in the form that people know as of magic and how you get into it. But in high school, to answer your question, I did start to notice that I was a little off kilter a little bit, because I would notice things that people wouldn't notice. For instance, if I put something down, I could physically never, ever forget where I put it. I'm not the kind of person who can forget where I left my keys. Yet at the same time, if someone else puts something down, I might see it out of the corner of my eye, and I would overhear someone say, "Where the hell's my shirt, my tie, my pants, my shoes, whatever it is?" And I would think and go, "Oh, I saw that. It's over there on that shelf." So I was kind of the eyes for everybody, and I started noticing that I was just kind of quick on my toes and observant in high school because I started noticing that other people weren't quite that quick. And then the other thing that happened was I would do things to amuse myself. Like if I tapped you on the chest and said, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing later?" And I might snag something out of your pocket with my two fingers as I tap you, pull it out like your sunglasses or a pen. And then I would take it. And I never did it as a magic trick. I did it just to see if I could.
Yeah.
Then later I'd give it back to you without you knowing. And I never related that to magic. I just did it because I thought, hey, this is fun. This is a great little thing I can get away with. And I would switch stuff on people's, like my teacher's desk. I would switch stuff around on their desks and sit back and laugh and think, God, first of all, could I get away with it?
Yeah.
Secondly, what's the reaction going to be? And it was this phenomenal thing that took place when I was about 17. I started noticing that some people don't notice these things and others would notice immediately. So I started putting people in these little categories and starting to realize that I could start pegging people right off the bat and think, you know what? Justin's probably pretty observant. This person over here is probably not. And I can get away with stuff with Justin in a different way than I could with that person.
Yeah.
So I started kind of developing this kind of free flow style of comedy that I didn't do to amuse anyone else. I did it to amuse myself. And that was that. And it stayed that way for years. And that's just kind of the way I rolled. I did stuff as kind of a class clown. And I made it up,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely, I did definitely notice in high school that I thought a little bit differently. And it wasn't anything I ever expressed. I never had conversations with people about that. I just noticed it for myself and kept it to myself. It was just the
Interesting.
way life was. I didn't really question it.
One more sub